Do you know what the lasting gift has been? It's the people. It is the main group of people who work together on all of these different types of movies. Have you ever thought what goes on behind the scenes of your favorite old TV shows? Many people laughed and felt warm in their homes because of the Andy Griffith Show, but the relationships between the actors weren't always perfect. Today we're going to tell you a shocking secret that Ron Howard has kept for years. He really doesn't like someone on set. Yes, there was trouble building behind Opie's innocent smile. Ron Howard must have been very upset about something. And who did he really dislike? Wait until we tell you this secret story that will forever change how you watch this beloved show. What the Andy Griffith Show left behind. When it first aired on CBS in 1960, the Andy Griffith Show became one of the most beloved shows in TV history. Based on the made-up town of Mayberry in North Carolina, the show stars Andy Griffith as Sheriff Andy Taylor, whose job it was to keep the peace and raise his son Opie, who was played by Ron Howard. For 8 years, it was a fan favorite thanks to its light comedic elements and good moral lessons, and fit in well with American culture. Even though there are a lot of important characters, one of the most loved was Don Knotts' version of the funny but useless Deputy Barney Fife. Getting Knotts to act out funny situations with Griffith's character was a big part of the show, and he won 5 Emmys for his work as an actor. Knotts made the choice to leave the show after the 5th season, for more chances to film than to act in a series. However, the way Barney Knotts was portrayed on the show is one of the most famous in TV history. The Andy Griffith Show was a big hit with both viewers and viewers who liked what they saw. It was always in the top 10 of the Nielsen ratings from the start of the show to the end. When it finished in 1968, it was the #1 show on TV. In the history of TV, this last season and its other very popular spin-offs like Gomer Pyle, USMC, and Mayberry RFD cemented its place. But the show's impact on American culture goes far beyond its original run. The Andy Griffith Show has been a favorite in syndication for generations thanks to its funny take on small-town life, relatable characters, and ideas that apply to everyone. Its cast, which included Andy Griffith, Ron Howard, Don Knotts, and Frances Bavier as Aunt Bee, helped build a tradition that people still love today. Many people love the Andy Griffith Show, but it was young Ron Howard's early years on set that really shaped not only his career, but also the future of Hollywood. Ron Howard's early days on the job. The early years of Ron Howard's work on the Andy Griffith Show were pretty interesting. They changed his career and helped him grow as a person. As Opie Taylor, the sweet but naughty son of Sheriff Andy Taylor, he was signed when he was only 6 years old. The young actress, who used to go by the name Ronnie, quickly won over a lot of people. He naturally knew how to give performances and keep the crowd interested, which made the show feel more personal. This alone won over the hearts of people who watched him as kids. He went on to become one of the most famous directors in Hollywood, so it was a great start for him. Howard got to learn a lot from working with experienced players like Andy Griffith and Don Knotts, who took him under their wing. Griffith did a lot to make Howard's early years come to life, both on screen and off. Because of how close they were, they would act like father and son on the show, with Griffith giving Howard advice and direction. Howard has been grateful that Griffith taught him many things about being a kid star and how important it is to be professional, humble, and work hard. But being a kid actor wasn't easy either. Howard liked how friendly everyone was on the shooting floor. But the stress of having to learn, act, and be a normal kid was too much to handle. Howard was still just a kid trying to fit in with his friends, and many of them made fun of him because of Opie. Howard later said that he loved playing, but didn't always like how it made people pay attention to his case. It was hard to balance the chances that came with being on the Andy Griffith Show with the things that came with being on camera as a child. The scene where Opie throws his rock into the lake is a great story that was used to film the opening credits. It doesn't make a sound in the water. Howard was too young to throw the rock far enough to make the splat that was needed for the shot. Howard was too young to throw the rock far enough to make the splat that was needed for the shot. Fix, someone with a props truck was ready to throw another rock at the same time as Opie. The splash would match Opie's throw. It would be nice for Howard to remember this little trick he did behind the scenes, as he tried to deal with the stress of playing such a difficult role. Even though it was hard at times, Ron Howard's time working on the Andy Griffith Show set the stage for his amazing career. He learned how important it was to work together, be patient, and keep going, not just in playing but in life in general. As a child, he worked on the set, which helped him become the director and entertainer he is now. He was in charge of a very famous TV show, which really helped him learn what went on behind the scenes. By the time the show finished in 1968, Howard had gone from being a child star to a well-known actor. Behind the scenes, things were tense. The Andy Griffith Show was friendly and had a small-town feel on TV. Not always the case on set, where disagreements were a long way from getting along. Andy Griffith didn't play the star actor who is always calm and collected when he's not on camera. He's also known for pulling those silly jokes which other group members didn't always like. Even Frances Bavier, who played Aunt Bee, seems to have had a more complicated connection with Griffith. Some say that Bavier, who was an experienced Broadway actor, thought Griffith's jokes were unprofessional, and the two of them would fight from time to time. It wasn't just her who felt tense, though. Don Knotts and Andy Griffith stayed friends for life, but both stars had times when they didn't feel comfortable, especially when it came to the future of the show's direction. Knotts had signed up for 5 seasons at first. In the end, Knotts stayed because he had other plans when the show went on longer than that. Even though they were still close friends, both of them were sad. Knotts should have had a bigger say in how the show was put together. Still, Griffith's practical jokes became a normal part of the show. Don Knotts was one of his favorite people to kill. Quite often, he would wake him up from naps by letting the metal film cans hit the floor. While Knott was shocked, he stayed calm, and the two of them quickly became a famous pair that fans could feel on screen. Griffith's tricks sometimes even got George Goober Lindsay to give in. When he woke up from a nap, duck guts were strung around his dressing room. It was all fun. The practical jokes sometimes got in the way of actors like Bavier who were more serious. Of all the people who talked to Griffith, Bavier was the most widely unfriendly. She was trained as an actress in New York, and she didn't like Griffith's easygoing, small-town farce style of humor. The real life of their relationship was a lot messier than how it was shown on TV. Even so, both of them were able to put on a professional front when the cameras were rolling, never letting their personal differences get in the way of their work. Later in life, Bavier apologized to Griffith for her part in the tense relationship. She did this before she died, trying to end a chapter of tension that had been open for decades. Finally, the professionalism of the group won out over the issues that sometimes arose behind the scenes. Even though they were different, they made one of the most popular TV shows of all time, and it still moves people today. There are funny jokes, serious arguments, and tense times on the Andy Griffith Show that all add to its history. Although these relationships off-screen make you think of the stress that comes with working in such an environment, it is on the set that the cast shows how dedicated they are to their work in such a short amount of time. The show stands as proof of how strong those bonds are, no matter how complicated their personal lives were. How things are between you and Andy Griffith. The way Andy Griffith got along with his co-stars, especially Ron Howard, was a big part of the show's success. Griffith, who played Andy Taylor, the fatherly sheriff, was also a parent to his 3 children in real life. Howard, who played Opie, could often count on his co-star to give him advice and comfort as he dealt with the risks of being a child star. Howard has often said in public how much he admires Griffith and how much he credits Griffith with helping him build his career in Hollywood. This father-son relationship looked strong on TV. But Griffith often had disagreements with other cast members behind the scenes, especially with Frances Bavier, who played Aunt Bee. Bavier was a skilled actress in the classical style. On some days, she didn't like how Griffith was so fun and silly while shooting. They got annoyed with each other sometimes because of how different they were, but they kept things professional the whole time the show was on. It is said that Bavier talked to Griffith years later and apologized for the tension that had built up between them while they were shooting. Griffith's relationship with Don Knotts was one of the most important parts of his life and work. There was great chemistry between the two stars, and their great comedic timing made the show what it was. Behind the camera, they stayed close friends even after Knotts left the show in 1965. Later, Griffith understood that the show would never be the same again. However, the friendship between the two lasted until Knotts' death in 2006, which shows how strong it is still. Even though Griffith had some problems with some cast members, he is without a doubt the most important person who helped make the show a hit. He had long-lasting relationships with many of his fellow actors, especially Ron Howard, who he helped learn how to act, and he was very close friends with Don Knotts. He also had an impact on what happened on screen in ways that were similar to those that happened behind the scenes. A lot of what the Andy Griffith Show left behind and how it changed television history are these interactions, even though they weren't always smooth. Even though Andy Griffith was like a father to Ron Howard, it was his strange but unbreakable friendship with Don Knotts that made the show what it was, on and off the screen. How Andy Griffith and Don Knotts became friends, unlikely friendship, was another close friendship between the two. There was only one show that Don Knotts was in, The Andy Griffith Show. But his part as the clumsy but likable policeman Barney Fife stole the hearts of viewers and Griffith himself. Griffith was able to get management to help them, and soon the two guys were the center of attention. Behind the scenes, Griffith and Knotts had a close relationship that went beyond their work. In the show, Griffith played the straight man to Knotts' silly Barney, but in real life they were friends and respected and admired each other. Griffith would often talk about how talented and well-timed Knott was, and Knott would say that Griffith had given him the chance to shine. It wasn't just on the set of the show that they were friends. They stayed close friends their whole lives and spent a lot of their free time together, even after Knotts quit the show in 1965. Knotts left the show to work in movies full-time, but it was not easy for her. Griffith himself says that Knotts was never the same after Knotts died. Griffith missed the fun and excitement of the show, as well as the company he had with Knotts on set. Even though the two brothers in show business were no longer working together, their friendship grew stronger over the years. It was in his last days that Griffith was seen sitting next to Knott. Their relationship, both on and off screen, has become one of the most famous pairs in TV history because of how well they work together. Their real-life relationship shows how long friendships can last. Fans have stuck by Griffith and Knott's friendship, which has grown into true love and success over the years. The time of truth. Who did Ron Howard dislike? Ron Howard's co-stars on The Andy Griffith Show would not be the shocking moment of truth about who he hated. It would probably be someone else. Howard has a lot of respect for the whole cast and crew who have helped him get where he is today in his job. But what really annoyed him wasn't a person, it was the stress of being a kid star. Howard became a kid in the middle of a lot of obligation. Along with being Opie, she had to handle school and everyday life. That didn't leave much time for a normal life. In interviews, Ron Howard finally said that even though he loved his job on the show, the constant attention from fans and pressure of being in the spotlight were making him unhappy. He often couldn't connect with other kids his age, and when he did, they would make fun of him for being high. Howard felt awfully alone, even though he had one of the most famous shows in town. Being on a well-known show like The Andy Griffith Show brought some fame. Of course, it wasn't always a gift. Sometimes it was like he had to carry a cross. During the day, he worked with helpful adults, and he remembers that the cast was very good. I saw Andy Griffith sitting to his left. Don Knotts was sitting to his right. Francis Bavier was sitting on a stool in front of him. It turned out to be very hard on your emotions to be a child star. He went through more hardships than just endless hours of filming and repeating lines. Howard had all the normal problems that kids have, plus the worry of trying to be someone they're not. He kept this inner battle to himself for a long time, though. Howard said that having two lives as a young boy, one in front of, and one behind the camera, wasn't easy when he thought about it now. It's interesting that Ron Howard has never said anything bad about his co-stars. He feels very close to Andy Griffith and talks about how they were like father figures to each other, and with Don Knotts, who always made Ron laugh. Even though there were some problems between cast members behind the scenes, they always stood by Howard during the show's run. They were kind to him and made sure he was comfortable on set. This makes me think that his anger is less about the people around him and more about the stresses he feels inside of growing too quickly. The real reason Ron Howard hated people was his desire for fame, not for a certain person. As an adult, he's been pretty honest about what it's like to be a kid star and the issues that can come up. On the other hand, he is quick to talk about all the good things that happened to him on The Andy Griffith Show. These were the early years that set him up for his legendary career as a director and producer. But they came with a price that would change the way he thought about fame and youth forever. Games, jokes, and mischief that happen off screen. Although there was clean and happy TV on, things going on in real life were very different. There was a lot of laughter, jokes, and fun things happening. The main cause of a lot of the trouble was, of course, Andy Griffith, who was funny and liked pulling practical jokes. Griffith was the one who kept the set's happy and somewhat silly mood going, who often made sure that his co-stars were the victims of light-hearted jokes. To wake up Don Knotts from his naps, one of his favorite tricks was to crash metal film canisters on the floor, which Knotts found very surprising. He fell for these kinds of practical jokes, but Knotts, being the nice star that he was, laughed with everyone else. Griffith was also known for pulling nasty pranks on people other than Knotts. Another person he hurt was actor George Goober Lindsay, who played the friendly mechanic on the show. Griffith was able to fill Lindsay's locker room with duck guts one time after he had already fallen asleep. The jokes weren't meant to hurt anyone, they were just a way to relax after a long day of shooting. The playful parts made the players even closer to each other after the play was over and helped them stay in touch afterwards. However, not everyone could handle how silly this show was. Francis Bavier, who played Aunt B, was more responsible, and he never had much time for activities outside of work. Bavier was classically trained as an actor and liked a more professional setting. He often got annoyed by Griffith's jokes and laid-back attitude. Some cast members could handle the jets, but Bavier's serious performance kept her away from the funny parts. People knew that she and Griffith were having trouble getting along, but when the cameras were rolling, they looked like they were fine. One cool thing is that jokes told behind the scenes often made it into the shows. One example is the episode Runaway Kid, in which Opie and his friends move the town sheriff right in front of a fire hydrant as a joke on Sheriff Taylor. This gets the town sheriff a ticket. This show's charm and lighthearted draw came from the actors' off-screen jokes that helped them get along on screen. The comedic tone of the show was made even more real by these off-camera plays. It wasn't just for fun when people on the Andy Griffith Show pulled jokes and other tricks off-screen. They kept the cast's spirits up while they worked long hours and made friends with some of them that will last a lifetime. People have been moved by the show itself, but the group stays close and has fun by making jokes behind the scenes. Knowing how it was shown above and below the camera, the kindness and humor they showed off camera was just as real as it was on camera makes fans love this show even more and proves that Mayberry magic was real both on and off camera. A strange way to say sorry, a shocking surprise that may have been the most shocking in Andy Griffith Show history was seen after the show was over. Frances Bavier, who played Aunt Bee on TV, officially apologized to Andy Griffith, who played her TV mother who loved the porch and cooked at home. Along with Bavier's warm and caring performance as Aunt Bee on screen, her relationship with Griffith was very tense off-screen. She took things seriously and worked hard. Griffith, on the other hand, was a chill joker who often seemed like nothing more than a joke. The cast knew about their stress on set, and the quiet space between the two stars became famous. The formerly trained actress Bavier, who was born in New York, was not someone to mess with. She didn't like how Griffith liked to make people laugh and act casual. They looked bigger than they were in real life, where they played twins who shared a living room and a bedroom. Griffith's attitude toward both work and fun was too much for Bavier to handle. Over the years that they were together, things got worse between them because Bavier thought Griffith's jokestery and laid-back personality took away from her love of business. But both stars gave legendary performances that made the Andy Griffith Show one of the all-time greats of TV. But as time went on and they went their different ways, Bavier thought about the time she and Griffith had spent on the show. All of that happened a long time after everything was over. In a shocking move, she called Griffith one day out of the blue to personally apologize for being hard to work with during the show. Bavier said she felt bad about the stress between them and admitted that she had let her own problems get in the way of their work relationship. Since it's been years since they worked on the show, this apology was both a surprise and a real one. The apology and peace that Griffith and Bavier made must have come from the heart, though, because Griffith was so polite when he accepted the apology. It was possible for them to work out their differences before Bavier's death in 1989, ending their fight. This gave both stars peace in their hearts, which healed old wounds and gave them new star strength. Fans saw it as a touching lesson that even the best working relationships can go bad for a while, but that forgiveness and thought can bring them back to their best. The actor, who is usually strict and distant, showed a softer, more vulnerable side when she said she was sorry. The dramatic explanation from Frances Bavier tells everyone that things need to be fixed, even though the problem has been going on for 30 years. This is also about relationships that happen while making TV shows, which adds to the difficulty of the situation by adding a lot of pressure. When Griffith and Bavier finally got along again, it was the perfect time to look back at their past and legacy with the Andy Griffith Show. So, it's always a good idea to remember that it's never too late to make peace, no matter how hard things have been or how easy it is to end a relationship. As the fight between Frances Bavier and Andy Griffith was finally over, Ron Howard was quietly getting ready to use his skills in ways other than Opie Taylor, which would start a career that would change Hollywood forever. Ron Howard's work after Opie. Many child actors don't have careers that take off as quickly as Ron Howard's did after his role as Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. But just because the show's final season ended in 1968 didn't mean Howard disappeared from the public eye. He kept getting better and better. His next big part was as Richie Cunningham on the hugely popular sitcom Happy Days. This role cemented his reputation as one of the most loved young actors on TV. Howard was able to easily go from being a kid star to a lead actor on primetime TV because of this. Howard's real love was acting, but he was also interested in directing, which would soon become one of the most successful job changes in Hollywood history. Howard started looking for a chance to direct while he was still working on Happy Days. Howard made his first big movie, Grand, which came out in 1977, 2 years after leaving Happy Days. From then on, this director's career took off, with movies like Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, and The Da Vinci Code. A Beautiful Mind won him 2 Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Picture. He was nominated for and won many other awards for his work. Howard is known for more than just directing movies thanks to his vast body of work, but he is one of Hollywood's most recognized directors because he knows a lot about the genre of movies and, more importantly, because he is good at telling stories and expressing himself. Howard has made a name for himself as a very good actor, writing everything from historical plays to thrilling thrillers. Howard has always been impressive. He works well with others and has great storytelling skills that make his peers admire him. These skills have led him to make both hits and features. Howard also left behind a production company called Imagine Entertainment, which he started with another director named Brian Grazer. They have made a lot of movies and TV shows that have done really well, like Arrested Development and 24. Ron Howard's work has changed the TV and movie worlds forever, from the likable Opie to a huge, varied business empire. Things to learn from the play. The drama that goes on behind the scenes of the Andy Griffith Show can teach people in the entertainment business, as well as people who deal with stressful relationships in real life. Most of the time, the most important thing they can learn from their situations is how to be professional. You could see and hear that Andy Griffith and Frances Bavier were constantly angry with each other, but their show seemed warm and friendly. To say the least, the fact that the players were able to put aside their differences for the sake of the show's success says a lot about how professionalism keeps projects going while personal relationships are being stifled. Another one is making peace. Just as Frances Bavier's apology to Andy Griffith right before she died was almost a wake-up call that things can be made right, no matter how time has changed things. Letting go of the past and saying sorry can mend many broken relationships. It's good to remember that even long-lasting problems can be solved with simple things like talking things out and forgiving each other. The show also shows how important it is to keep a good sense of fun, even when things are bad. Andy Griffith's love of practical jokes helped to bond the cast together, lighten the mood on set, and build relationships that would last for decades. Laughter in moderation can ease stress and make the environment healthier, which can help people get through tough times. The last thing this show left behind is a message about the power of connections and how to build lasting, positive ones. On the Andy Griffith Show, there were times when the cast and stars got into fights. But over the years, Andy Griffith and Don Knotts became close. They stayed friends long after the show ended, which reminds us that the connections we make at work can have long-lasting good effects on our careers.